There were over £500,000 worth on show at this London presentation by Christian Dior.
They're functional, fashionable, and just plain fun.
You deserve a second look.
From neat dresses and polished suits to checkered kaftans and fishnet stockings, the 60s indeed took a wild turn. Trends that we now call weird were once the hottest styles that left people picking their jaws up off the floor. These 20 weird fashion things of the 1960s gave us all a reality check.
A stylish woman would never be caught on a dance floor without her go-go boots.
GoGo Boots. GoGo Boots from the 60s were a sensation of the time. Mid-calf heeled boots that were generally made of vinyl or leather and often found in white and bold colors. Initially worn as part of modern fashion, they became associated with dance clubs, hence the name Go-Go, referring to the energetic dancing that took place there. Introduced to match the futuristic aesthetic of the 60s, they were often on shows like Shindig and worn by famous pop stars. That made them even more popular amongst young women. However, they were different from the feminine shoes of the time. Go-Go boots were considered rebellious. A concept of chunky heels and bold colors broke the unwritten rules imposed on women of the generation. They were comfortable to wear and dance in at clubs, thanks to their wide heels, and could be paired with all sorts of outfits. Although the boots were fun and liberating for many young women, they also contributed to the sexualization of them in the 1960s and soon lost their charm in later years.
Girls of the 60s were raising their hemlines and raising eyebrows with the arrival of the miniskirt.
Miniskirts. A controversial piece of clothing banned in many countries was the miniskirt. As the name would suggest, it typically ended above the knees, often at mid-thigh or slightly even higher. They were seen as icons of liberation and boldness for women and received an intense backlash. Mary Quant, a British fashion designer, aimed to create a piece that allowed women to move freely and reflect their youthful energy, and that's when she began working with a shorter hemline at her London boutique. This new fashion was embraced by icons like Twiggy, Jean Shrimpton, and Brigitte Bardot, and quickly became popular amongst everyday women. It gained traction not only in the United States, but in other parts of the world like the UK, France, and Japan, frequently featured in top magazines like Vogue. The trend impacted women's body image, as the miniskirt style often emphasized a leaner and taller silhouette, a sensation popularized by Twiggy. This not only motivated women to work out to slim and trim their bodies, but discouraged those they felt couldn't meet the standard. In 1965, British model Jean Shrimpton caused a scandal by wearing a white miniskirt to the Melbourne Cup. People were shocked she had no hat, gloves, or stockings, and her skirt was 4 inches above her knee. Psychedelic Prince. When we think of the 1960s, we think about bold colors and eccentric fashion. Psychedelic prints and groovy patterns were all the rage, and they worked well with the generation's free-spirited mindset. The prints were judged as weird because they broke the 60s rules, patterns and colors were not as bold and eccentric, and the fashion was considered minimalist. However, the 60s decided to flip the coin. These prints became incredibly famous and were a dominant part of hippie fashion in everything from clothing, posters, album covers, and more. Fashion houses used psychedelic patterns in their collections, and throughout the years they were often branded and associated with drug use, and not everyone wanted to be linked with that counterculture. Mod suits. Minimalist yet modern, mod suits are tailored with standout fabrics and colors that scream for attention. Originating in the 60s, they were an essential part of the mod subculture. They were considered weird because they rejected the boxy traditional suits that dominated the 50s and early 60s. With a slim cut and sharp line, they were seen as too trendy and flashy by conservative generations. There was always a controversy between dressing stylish and neat versus dressing like a rebel, and most of the 60s patterns, colors, and styles were anything but ordinary. Plastic clothing. Clothes were either cotton, wool, or even yarn, but fashion took a step beyond and included PVC, PET, and nylon, and they created plastic clothing. Durable and water-resistant, they came with equal cons that put them a step back. Plastic clothing wasn't breathable like natural fabrics, and they had a cheap look, which was something that people didn't look forward to. The 60s were all about fast talking and good looking, but plastic clothing changed the meaning given that it was quite uncomfortable to wear. The production and disposal of plastic clothing contributed to environmental concerns, particularly regarding plastic waste. On the flip side, plastic clothing carried a retro vibe that evoked nostalgia, characterized by shiny and bold designs, and despite the initial criticism, plastic clothing played a significant role in 21st century fashion. Tie-dye. A fashion that represented the entirety of the hippie movement in the 60s, tie-dye wasn't merely a statement but a cultural movement with leftist leanings and historical connotations. Many people viewed it as rebellious and against the Vietnam War, advocating for peace and free love. Twirly psychedelic patterns of tie-dye were linked to the use of hallucinogenic drugs. The bright colors and trippy designs were thought to reflect visual effects of a drug-induced experience, leading critics to connect the fashion with irresponsible behavior and drug culture. Tie-dye was perceived as improper and unkempt during the era that dominated neat and solid colors and patterns, and although it seemed to uplift the free spirit, something that wasn't widely celebrated at the time, it was often mocked for being overly informal. Bell-bottoms. Bell-bottoms were considered unflattering on men and faced significant criticism. While regular trousers were straight, bell-bottoms featured an exaggerated flare that gave people a distinctive look, deviating from the typical appearance. Fashion trends come and go, and bell-bottoms received a fair share of criticism. Women embraced bell-bottoms as the perfect pair of jeans to enhance their curves. The origins can be traced to sailor uniforms in the early 19th century. Sailors in the Navy wore trousers that were wider at the bottom to make it easier to roll them up while working on wet ship decks and wading through water. They were synonymous with the club culture of 60s and 70s. They complemented the movement and rhythm of dance, making them a staple in dance clubs. Everyone from Elton John to Elvis Presley wore bell-bottoms. Mushroom haircuts. A cut that made people look like a cube, the infamous mushroom haircut, also known as the bowl cut, resembled a mushroom cap. The sides were trimmed short while the top remained full. Aside from its appearance, the haircut was easy to maintain and suitable for both men and women. The 60s were a time when these haircuts were commonly seen in yearbooks and school photos, and many may have regretted the choice, as some faced bullying and teasing for the hairstyle, particularly in places where conformity was valued. Being branded a geek or nerd was a common thing of the day. Gen Z has been giving the cut a new lease on life, bringing it back into the fashion conversation. Space-age fashion. Space-age fashion began in the 50s and continued well into the 70s, featuring bold colors and metallic fabrics. The launch of Sputnik in 1957 and human spaceflight ignited a fascination with space and the future, influencing the design. This movement achieved considerable fame in the 60s, particularly in high fashion and popular culture, coinciding with the mod trend in Britain and the counterculture movement in the United States. This created a unique fusion of style. Designers became household names and their collections were prominently featured in fashion magazines and runway shows. When it came to comfort, the pieces fell short. Materials were neither flexible nor breathable and made them uncomfortable and difficult to manage. And if you still have some of these pieces, they have quite the high resale value. Peasant blouses. A peasant blouse, known as a bohemian blouse or ethnic top, is a loose-fitting garment characterized with a low neckline, a billowy sleeve, and often decorated embroidery or embellishments. They were comfortable for everyday wear due to their flowy fabric, which was thin enough to ensure breathability. They trace their roots back to traditional garments worn by rural peasants across Europe. Designed for daily use, these blouses prioritized comfort for agricultural work and were often hand-stitched with authentic embroidery. The loose fit may not suit every body type. Generally considered to be casual wear, they're a lot less suitable for formal occasions. Jumpsuits. A jumpsuit is a one-piece outfit combining the top and bottom into a single garment, featuring attached sleeves or wide tapered legs. They come in various styles ranging from casual to formal and can be made from different materials like denim, cotton, and more. The pop culture of the 1960s embraced these jumpsuits with various famous artists, marking a significant shift in fashion trends. Some people may find them weird due to unconventional silhouettes and the fact that they're a one-piece garment, which can be a lot less practical for bathroom breaks compared to separate tops and bottoms. The popularity of the jumpsuit was on and off since being introduced in the 30s, and they've re-emerged in various forms, from casual streetwear to high-fashion design, frequently spotted on runways and worn by celebrities alike. The versatility and ease of styling continues to attract fashion enthusiasts, though jumpsuits have certainly faced their fair share of criticism. Fishnet stockings. The invention of the fishnet stocking dates back to the 16th century, where they gained popularity amongst flappers and dancers. Throughout the 1930s and into the 40s, fishnet stockings continued to be embraced in various circles, especially in dance, theater, and nightlife. They could be thigh-high, knee-high, or full-length, often made from nylon and stretchy materials. Known for being a scandalous piece of clothing that embraced the idea of sexuality without being explicit or gaudy. Fishnet stockings arrived in Paris, where they complemented the dimly lit nightlife of music and partying. The open weave pattern became fashionable in the 19th century, particularly in women's lingerie, and during an era marked by modesty, fishnet stockings were seen as edgy and bold. Long fringe. Long fringe is often referred to as fringed or fringed hems, a decorative trim made of various materials like fabric, leather, and suede, hanging in strips or tassels. The use of long fringe dates back to ancient Egypt, where Egyptians adorned garments with fringed edges. Eventually, in the 19th century, fringe became popular in Victorian fashion, used on cloaks and dresses to add elegance. It wasn't appealing to everyone, though, due to unconventional appearance and association with subcultures. Then maintaining the fringe could be quite difficult, as the hanging strands may be caught on objects, causing damage or wear. Styling long fringe is not an easy task. It requires careful consideration to avoid an overwhelming look, and over time, long fringe fell out of favor in later years. Caftans. A caftan is a loose-fitting garment that typically reaches ankle length, featuring wide sleeves and a deep neckline. While being celebrated for comfort and ease of wear, it also faced criticism for unflattering appearance on various body types. Additionally, wearing a caftan without understanding its cultural significance could lead to accusations of appropriation. The caftan has its origins in Middle Eastern and North African cultures. Dating back to ancient times, it was worn by various groups, including the Persians, the Turks, and more. Traditionally made of luxurious fabric, it was often associated with royalty and nobility. In the 1960s and 70s, they gained significant popularity as part of the bohemian and hippie fashion movement, becoming synonymous with luxury and relaxation, frequently worn by celebrities and featured in high fashion context. Caftan made its entry and surprisingly never left the game, standing strong in the high competition of the fashion world. Edie Sedgwick's earrings. Striking bold clothing, a pixie haircut, and chunky earrings remind you of the 60s, and Edie Sedgwick's earrings, known for unconventional designs and bizarre shapes, took off during the time. Eventually met with major opposition, the earrings became a symbol of what it meant to be an it girl. Sedgwick's distinctive style and fashion choices captivated young women everywhere. The earrings gained fame through her association with Andy Warhol and the factory scene, with her presence in the media. These statement pieces transform minimalist outfits into bold and dramatic ensembles, but not everyone appreciated the flair. Wearing the earrings for extended periods could be uncomfortable and strain the earlobes, making them impractical for everyday use. Long-term use could expand the earlobes and lead to potential damage. Checkerboard patterns. High-contrast patterns that scream chessboard defined a quirky trend in the 60s. Designing an outfit with checkered patterns without it feeling overdone was no easy task. The designs appeared across various fashion contexts spanning clothing, accessories, and shoes, and are often associated with subcultures' rebellious aesthetics and bold streetwear style. The pattern has its origins in ancient tile designs, architectural motifs, and mosaics from the medieval period. Another resurgence took place in the 70s and 80s when they became the hallmark of punk and ska. Bands like the Specials, who were prominent in the two-tone ska music scene, used the checkerboard pattern as a symbol of unity between black and white cultures. If you preferred subtle colors and patterns, this design may not be your go-to choice. Oversized sunglasses. The retro oversized sunglasses were a significant trend, but may have led you to rethink your past choices. These sunglasses were typically associated with high fashion, celebrity culture, and retro aesthetics, becoming more of an accessory than a means of eye protection. Oversized glasses did not suit everyone, particularly those with smaller faces. However, they came in handy for celebrities to hide from paparazzi who were haunting them. The trend began when Jackie Kennedy Onassis, the First Lady of the United States, popularized them as her signature look, and they matched the accessories that made it iconic during the 60s. The contributions of celebrities helped to elevate the popularity of oversized glasses. Audrey Hepburn's appearance in Breakfast at Tiffany's showcased the trend beautifully, taking audiences to the glamorous days of vintage fashion. Ruffled shirts. Frilly shirts were a vintage form of pleats, but funkier. From the 16th to 18th century, the shirts adorned with ruffles were a staple amongst wealthy, symbolizing elegance, wealth, and power. In the 17th century, women incorporated ruffles into their clothing, adding a feminine touch. The 60s and 70s witnessed a revival of the ruffled shirt, largely influenced by music and pop culture, with icons like Jimi Hendrix, David Bowie, and Prince embracing the style of the shirts during performances. However, during the 60s, the ruffled shirt was often viewed as too extravagant for casual settings, which made them less versatile for everyday wear. Those who sought to make a statement were more than happy to wear them. Bold eye makeup. Bold eye makeup served as an artistic way to express individuality while embracing freedom, though it's faced both admiration and criticism. Often referred to as doll eye makeup, this style features eyeliner that creates the illusion of larger and more docile eyes, reminiscent of a doll. While earlier trends relied on rouge and simple eyeliner, the 60s went crazy with glitter, colorful eyeshadow, rhinestones, and more. Egyptians were amongst the first to use bold eye makeup, with eyeliner creating dramatic cat eye shapes around the eyes. Men and women wore it for religious, cultural, and protective reasons, and the look could instantly transform a face, drawing attention while making a strong statement, with most women during the 60s not being a huge fan. However, the younger generation set the bar different and let it loose. Paper dresses. As weird as it sounds, paper dresses were a fashion piece during the 60s, and as the name would suggest, they were made from paper. Fashion was typically associated with fabric durability and longevity, while paper was transient and disposable. The idea of wearing something made of paper sounded odd to many, and the reason behind the paper dresses was quite valid. During the 20th century, after the Second World War, lack of appropriate machinery to produce clothing led to the invention of paper clothes. The introduction of paper dresses can be traced to 1970 when Scott Paper Company launched a marketing campaign featuring disposable paper dresses made from a non-woven material. TWA embraced the concept in the 60s with themed flights where flight attendants wore the dresses inspired by various regions of the world. Passengers received pamphlets with menus reflective of the region's cuisine, and the dresses were available for purchase during the flight. They were also biodegradable. This was a look at 20 of the weirdest fashion trends from the 60s. Which one of them were your go-to style back in the day? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time.